No matter what kind of online whiteboard you use to create your instructional videos, you're going to want to set your lesson up ahead of time so that you can save time when you're actually making your recording. There are many online whiteboards, and there are even whiteboard apps that you might be familiar with on an iPad or Android tablet. For this lesson, I'm going to use Google Jamboard. If you have a Google account, you can access Jamboard by being logged into your Google account and clicking on your Google Apps launcher and selecting Jamboard. You can also go straight to it just by typing jamboard.google.com in your address bar. Once you get to the Jamboard window, you'll see any jams that you may have created before, if you've created any, and if not, this will just be blank. To start a new jam, simply click on the plus, and you get a nice clean board. One of the first things I encourage you to do is click where it says Untitled and go ahead and name this jam so that if you have to stop and find it again later, it's easy to find in your Google Drive. I'm going to be setting up a lesson on two-step linear equations, so that's what I'm going to name my jam. Now, you have several tools here in Jamboard. There's actually some backgrounds to choose from if you want to use graph paper, or maybe just a different color besides white. I'm going to stick with white. On the left, you see your tools. The top is a pen, and when you click on it, you'll have different types: a brush, a highlighter, a marker, and a regular pen, and a choice of 6 colors. The next tool is the eraser. And if you make a mark on the board and want to get rid of it, you can use the eraser to do just that. You can also clear a whole frame. This will take everything on this board off if you want to get rid of all of it. The mouse pointer is just what it is, a pointer, and it will let you select and move things, which I'll show in a moment. You can create sticky notes on your Jamboard and give them either no background or different colored backgrounds. When you're done creating sticky notes, you can hit cancel. And this is where the select tool comes in, because this is how I can move something on my board, make it larger, look for options, even turn it. So that is what the selection tool does. I can also add images to my Jamboard. I can either upload something that I have on my computer, or I can pull things from Google Drive or Google Photos, or even go to Google Image Search. So let's say I wanted some scales. Here some different scales come up. I can even choose whether I want it to be a photo or clip art. And I'm going to select this scale right here. And it comes into my board. And again, I can move it around, turn it, and click on these 3 dots for some options. I can even move it backward and forward if I'm doing any layering. So let's say I need this to go behind my sticky note. Let's send it backwards. And now I can move the sticky note on top of the scales. There's also a shape tool. So by clicking on it, I can select a shape that I want to draw. And now I can draw a shape pretty easily. There's a text box tool, and basically I click and just start typing. Once I've typed text, I can increase the size of the box. I even, when I'm clicked on the text box itself, have some styles I can use. I can change the color of the text, and I can choose to center or right justify it only within the box though. So it's not a ton of options, but there are some things you can do with it. And then the last thing, and this is one that's really useful for drawing attention to things in your lesson, is the laser pointer. And when that is on, I now have a red dot when I hover over my board, and I can use it to underline something, but it goes away. So I can say, this is an example of a sticky note. Here's a text box, an inserted image, and a shape. So all of those things are what you can create on the whiteboard itself. Now, you might need more than one board set up ahead of time for your lesson. So what you can do is, up here you see the number of frames you have in your Jamboard. Right now I'm on 1 of 1. If I click this arrow, it automatically creates a new blank frame for me. I simply come back up here to go back to the previous frame. I can also click just under the frames to extend the frame bar, and now I can see both of the frames in my jam. I can add a frame anywhere I want. So now I've added to the front of the jam, and if I close this, you'll see I'm now on 2 of 3, and if I back up, here's my first one. And then my second one, and my third one. If I need to get rid of a frame, I extend the frame bar, click the 3 dots, and delete it. Another thing that's helpful is I can duplicate one of my frames. So if I have something set up on a frame that I'm going to use more than once, I can plan ahead, select duplicate, and now I have 2 identical frames. And this is going to really help me out here in a second when I set up my linear equations lesson. To demonstrate the clear frame, I just want to show you what happens when I click clear frame. Everything goes away. So it's important you use that thinking ahead and being careful. You can always use the undo arrow if you do something you didn't mean to do. Okay, now what I want to do is just show you an example of getting ready for a lesson. So I'm going to do 2-step linear equations. So I'm thinking ahead in my lesson. The first thing I want to do is write out the sample equation I'm going to show my students. So I'm going to grab the pen here. So the equation I'm going to do with them is 4x plus 3 equals 15. If I don't like that 5, I'll just undo and try it again. I am drawing with a mouse, and that can be a little challenging. If you have a touch screen computer, you can use a stylus, and that can help make the writing more smooth. Now, another thing I want is I've been using a scale to remind my students as we work on linear equations that they have to balance on both sides. So I'm going to come here to my add image. And my scale that I played with a little bit before is still showing up. So I'm going to choose it again. And I'm going to make it a little smaller and put it in the top corner so I can reference it as a reminder to my students. Now, thinking ahead to my lesson, I'm going to solve the equation on this slide, but on the next slide, I'm going to encourage my students to check their work. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this slide before I do anything else to it. So I'll come up here to my extend the frame bar, 3 dots, duplicate. So now I have 2 slides that are identical. And the second slide is going to be for checking my work. So I'm going to create a sticky note and call it check your work. And then I'll move it maybe to the middle and make it a little bit bigger. So those 2 slides should be enough for me to create my lesson here in a few minutes. So that's all there is to using Jamboard with a very simple set of tools and getting your slides ready to record your lesson.